Joining us now is Alamogordo Tigers head football coach A.J. Cisco, coming off a frustrating game. Didn't get to finish it, and obviously a bad second quarter against a good Los Lunas team. But obviously a chance to regroup this week for you guys.
It is, and we talked to our kids immediately after the game and had a long conversation in the locker room. I mean, we had a long time in the locker room because of the lightning delay, and it was just one of those freak situations. You get lightning delayed. Everything kind of went south, and we didn't play well in the second quarter, especially defensively. And our kids have responded this week to the challenge we gave them on Friday after that, and we probably had our two best practices of the year the past couple of days.
Offensively, I mean, there were a lot of positives. You guys moved the ball well on 3 or 4 of your drives, and obviously only get 7 points, but you probably would have scored right there at the end of the third quarter when you guys were having a chance to score. So not exactly what you wanted, and there were some mistakes in there, but you guys obviously had some positives on the offensive side.
Yeah, and offensively we had a lot of positives. I felt in my 7 years and however many times we played Los Lunas in that time frame, that was the most success we've had running the football against them. And they're going to load the box, and our kids handled it well. We executed well. I mean, the touchdown drive was I think we completed 1 or 2 passes, and then went 80 yards down the field running the ball. So it was very pleasing. We had a couple other drives. We had a fumble deep in their territory that we feel like that was a drive we're probably going to score on, and then that drive right at the start of the second half. But offensively, we found a lot of positives of what we can do offensively. We've got to be the same thing I always say. We got to take care of the football, and we can't shoot ourselves in the foot. I mean, we'd blow a blocking scheme, and we go from having 3rd and 4 to now we're 3rd and 8. And now we're in a situation where we don't want to be. And we talk to our kids all the time. If we stay in front of the sticks, we're hard to stop offensively with the tempo that we can push, and then how far we can spread people out and make them play sideline to sideline. Defensively, you go to that first couple of series of us, we played really well defensively. We got 2 stops, and we didn't capitalize offensively. One drive we go 3 and out, the next drive we fumble. But you go back and watch film, and there's a lot of positive things we did defensively. We ended up giving up 2 big plays in the second quarter, and they scored on back-to-back plays, and that's where they find our young kids. And that's what we live with. We've told you, and I've told you, that our young kids are they're young and they're going to be good football players, but they're also very young, and this is their first moment, so they got to grow up. And they found them and exposed them, and those kids responded well, and they didn't hang their heads like some sophomores may do. They responded, they owned their mistakes and get better. And our whole mentality this week was to focus on this week and last week's done, and our kids responded to that. And I was pleased with our effort, and it's one thing I'll never doubt about our kids is how hard we will play. We will play hard the whole time, and we just got to clean up the mental aspect of it, whether that's defensively lining up correctly, fitting in the right gaps where we're supposed to when we have our run fits, making sure we take leverage away defensively in the secondary based on the coverage we're in. And so we did have positives on both sides of the ball, but I was very pleased offensively.
And then, of course, special teams, the third aspect of it, which is obviously continues to be a challenge for you guys. And I know y'all are working hard at it, but it just hasn't quite clicked so far this year.
No, and that's on us as coaches. I mean, we've got to get the right kids in there, and we've spent more time probably the last 2 weeks than I've spent in 20 years coaching football, coaching special teams, to fix that, because we're giving up so much field position on people after we score or anything, even after a punt, and that's something that we got to fix. And our kids understand, and I couldn't be more impressed with the mentality of this group of kids, in that there's no pointing fingers at anybody. They all hold themselves accountable to their actions or to their mistakes, and every day they come out there, they want to get better and they want to fix those things, and they don't blame anybody else. And so I couldn't be prouder of how our kids attack that every day when we come out there and we focus on it.
Get Gadsden this week, which, can't say enough. I mean, Gadsden's been one of those programs that has always struggled to find some continuity, and Coach Fascio's we've been really impressed. They started off the season 2-0. Last couple years, they've been really solid. Obviously, you've gotten to see them the last few years as well. They always present a challenge. They usually have some size and provide some difficulties for you guys.
Yeah, and Coach Fascio's done a great job. That is one of the toughest places to coach in the state, and what he's done, and going back to his alma mater and getting the valley down there to believe in football and to buy into it is very special, and I can be prouder of him to be a coach in this industry with him and what he's done with that place. It's awesome to watch him and have a conversation with them, and it's pretty surreal to see what everybody else knows what Gadsden is and what he's turned it into. And it's not just him, it's a staff and that whole administration and everybody going into it, and his kids. They probably have about 80 kids out, freshmen up playing football, which is huge numbers for them, and they're continuing to grow. And they're very talented. They got skill. They're huge. They got some monsters up front. So we do have our hands full. We got to play well on Friday if we want to win. But it's something that I know in the past when everybody thinks of Gadsden, they think, well, that's just a cakewalk because of what they did for 40 years. And last year they ended up going to the playoffs for the first time in forever, and then won a first playoff game in, I don't know, almost 60 years. It was a good football team, and that they graduated their quarterback, the Herrera kid, but they replaced him with a bunch of skill kids. I mean, they're very talented skill-wise.
And I mean, I know for you guys, you're not. I mean, you certainly focus on some of the things that they're good at, but you're more worried about maybe not having some of the mistakes you had in some spots last week and cleaning up the things that are important for you guys, right?
Yeah, and defensively, we spend a lot of time focusing on what they do offensively and trying to make sure we do things correctly. But even when we go into that lightning delay at halftime, we sat there as a staff and talked about we got to figure out how to make sure our kids get better at what we do, because last week doesn't make or break our season. But 5 weeks from now, it will, and when we get into district, and we got to be able to clean those things up. So we spend a lot of time just focusing on ourselves and do what we do and adjust schemes. And offensively, we're going to have our hands full with their nose guard. He's one of the best ones in the state. He's good. And so that's something that we talked to our linemen at, and our linemen are taking on that challenge this week that they want to be able to run the football, and it's up to them to be able to get that done. But we always focus on ourselves and find out how we can get better, and everything we do right now is to make sure when we get to district and we open with Carlsbad at home that we're playing our best football.
And defensively, I mean, they're running, or offensively, they're still running that option kind of look that they've been running the last couple of years.
They get into 10 personnel. They're going to be in gun all the time. They might get in two-back gun, but they run a lot of zone. They're going to run a lot of counter. They're going to pull it. They're going to throw screens. And they're not as, I won't say, I mean, the Herrera kid was a dynamite. Like he was a different kid. I bragged about that kid. Everybody talked to college coaches about him. They had to recruit him, and he's at NIMI now. So they do lose that aspect, but I mean, skill-wise, if you go across the board, receiver-wise, they're very talented. The quarterback they got right now is a very good athlete. I mean, he's not maybe the level of Herrera, but he might throw it better than Herrera. And running back, they got two of them that are pretty good, the Kano kid. And then, like I said, they're huge up front. They run a lot of down scheme, too. They're going to run zone. They're going to run counter. They're going to run power. So we're going to have to be very good and very sound defensively, and that's our whole job defensively is make sure we line up correctly and execute our assignments.
And I know, obviously, another aspect is homecoming this week, and we saw a big crowd first game of the season. Homecoming typically ends up being the biggest crowd of the year. It kind of depends if there's some other things going on, but it's an opportunity to everybody wants to win their homecoming game.
Oh, absolutely, and we tell our kids that homecoming only happens once a year, and it only happens during football season. And if there's no football game, there's no homecoming. So the most important thing of the entire week is 7 o'clock on Friday. And our kids buy into that mindset. And now, at the same time, we tell our kids to go have fun. We had kids out there at the Powder Puff game on Monday. We're going to have kids tonight at the Powder Fluff game playing volleyball, coaching it, doing stuff. So it's a fun week for everybody. It's a fun week for the community to get involved. And it's not just about football. I mean, everybody gets to participate in homecoming. And you'll have the parade on Friday before the game, and you get to see all the athletes and everybody and all the activities, ROTC band marching around. And it's a special time. It's one of the funnest weeks of the year for those kids because one thing I'll tell them is when you get out of high school, you don't get that feeling. College homecoming ain't the same as a high school homecoming. So we want our kids to enjoy it, but at the same time, we still focus on Friday night at 7. The ball's going to get put on a tee and somebody's kicking it, and then it's just a football game at that point.
All right, we'll look forward to it. Gadsden Friday night at 7 o'clock. Coach, appreciate the time.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Go Tigers.